Sometimes, a person walks into your life and begins to behave in ways that feel familiar, warm, and unexpectedly meaningful. And even though they don't say anything directly, something in their energy, their expression, their presence, begins to shift around you. A quiet signal, a subtle change, a story unfolding between the lines. Most people overlook these tiny moments, yet human behavior, when observed carefully, reveals more than words ever could. And today, we're exploring the psychology behind those subtle emotional cues someone may show when they feel drawn to you but chooses to keep it private. Not because of forbidden intentions, but because life is complex, relationships are layered, and feelings often move in silence before they ever reach the surface. So take a breath and stay with me, because what you're about to hear will help you understand people in a way you may never have understood them before. Human beings rarely reveal their deeper emotions openly. We soften them, disguise them, wrap them in small gestures that seem ordinary but carry meaning. Sometimes a person will feel something quietly, admiration, emotional pull, warmth, yet they choose to keep those feelings within careful boundaries. And when that happens, their behavior becomes a blend of honesty and restraint, a quiet tug-of-war between what they feel and what they allow to be seen. This is where subtle psychology begins to speak. Not loudly, not dramatically, but softly, through patterns most people never notice. Often, the story begins with attention. Not obvious attention, not dramatic focus, but a gentle shift. Their eyes may search for you longer than necessary, or drift toward you in moments when they believe you aren't looking, not out of desire, but out of connection, out of comfort, out of the feeling that your presence changes something in them. These lingering glances aren't bold moves. They're small windows into the emotional world they're trying to keep contained. And most of the time, the moment they realize you've noticed, they look away, quickly, almost nervously, as if catching themselves in a moment of vulnerability they didn't intend to reveal. Then comes engagement. People who feel an unspoken emotional pull often begin to interact in ways that feel deeper, more meaningful, more tuned into you. A casual conversation slowly turns into something more layered. A simple question becomes an opening to share more. And the way they speak to you carries a warmth that feels distinct. A tone that says, "I am comfortable with you," more than I expected to be. They may start remembering the little things you say. Tiny details, your preferences, your habits, your small stories. Things most people forget. Not because they're trying to impress you, but because something about you matters to them on a level they haven't fully acknowledged. This kind of memory comes from emotional focus, not intention. And then, there's behavior. One of the clearest psychological signals of quiet emotional connection is the effort someone makes to be near you in natural, unforced ways. Maybe they choose the seat next to yours in a meeting, or end up walking in your direction more often than coincidence would allow. Maybe they appear in small moments throughout your day. A passing interaction, a shared task, a sudden conversation that wasn't strictly necessary but somehow happened anyway. These moments aren't dramatic. They're gentle, almost invisible to others, but noticeable to you because they form a pattern. A pattern that says, "I feel something here, but I'm keeping it subtle." But the most fascinating part is this. These signals rarely remain consistent. People who are navigating private emotions often express two sides of themselves: warm, and then distant; engaged, and then reserved; present, and then suddenly withdrawn. It's not confusion, it's conflict. It's the human mind trying to honor boundaries while still responding to genuine, unexpected emotion. So you might notice that they're incredibly open when it's just the two of you. But shift the moment others are around. Their tone becomes formal, their posture more controlled, their actions more guarded, not because their feelings disappear, but because they're managing them in real time. This contrast, these switches in behavior, often reveal more truth than any confession ever could. In private moments, you might feel a natural flow, conversation that rides effortlessly, laughter that comes easily, comfort that feels strangely familiar. But in group settings, they may act like nothing special exists at all, not because they want to deny the connection, but because they are protecting something. Maybe themselves, maybe their circumstances, maybe the emotional balance of their life. And this brings us to a deeper psychological truth. People don't hide emotions because they're wrong. They hide them because they're complicated. Sometimes, a person is already committed to another chapter of their life, and any unexpected emotional connection, no matter how gentle or innocent, feels like a ripple they're not ready to acknowledge. They step closer, then pull away. They open up, then retreat. They engage deeply, then silence themselves. Not because they want to mislead you, but because they're trying to respect the structure of their life, while managing a feeling they didn't plan to have. So what should you do when you sense these signals? You pause. You breathe. You choose integrity over impulse, understanding over expectation. Because emotional awareness is not an invitation to cross boundaries. It is a reminder to navigate connections with maturity, empathy, and respect. Your role is not to interpret signals as permission. Your role is to recognize them and then decide how to carry yourself with grace. And that often means setting the tone, a tone of respect, a tone of distance when needed, a tone that honors the commitments and emotional realities of another person's life. You don't encourage deeper attachment. You don't create private moments that blur lines. You don't step into spaces that aren't meant for you. Instead, you simply acknowledge the truth quietly within yourself. You choose to respond with clarity, kindness, and emotional intelligence. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is step back, gently, without drama, without confrontation, just enough to give the connection the space it needs to dissolve into something healthier. Because real strength is not in pursuing every emotional spark. Real strength is in knowing when a connection is not meant to become a story. Human behavior is complicated, but your choices don't have to be. And as we close, here is the final truth. Sometimes the most powerful connections in life are the ones that stay unspoken, not because they were wrong, but because they were meant to teach you something. About awareness, about boundaries, about emotional maturity, and about the quiet strength of walking away with grace. If you can understand these signals, without acting on them, without encouraging them, and without losing yourself, then you've mastered a rare form of emotional intelligence. And that mastery will guide you in every relationship you build from this moment forward.